Welcome back to another exciting edition of the We Talk Chelsea podcast. A podcast for three football friends that play football together, united by a love of Chelsea Football Club, and what a week it has been. Chelsea, funnily enough, we didn't lose a game this week. It's amazing.
Ooh.
Well, no, you say that. Since we last spoke, we did, because we lost to Real Madrid.
We lost.
that
we lost
doesn't
that
count.
anyway.
That doesn't count. We
doesn't count. It's all about the league. It's all about the league. Everyone knows that. Well, chaps, again, another week gone by and being a Chelsea fan, and it's there's always something to talk about at Chelsea, isn't there? This time last week we were all talking about how it's likely going to be Julian Nagelsmann, and here we are 1 week later, and Nagelsmann's pulled out. Enrique's pulled out. The front two runners, and now it's looking very, very likely, according to recent reports, confirmed in the last 2 hours. And if it's on BBC Sport, they're always the last to know. But it looks like Mauricio Pochettino is due to be announced as Chelsea manager imminently. Let's throw it across through to, I think, Temba, you were one of the very first people to say Pochettino. You wanted Poch a long time ago. I think it was like halfway through like the Potter kind of reign. You were thinking maybe Poch is probably the person that's going to transform Chelsea's fortunes. How do you feel at this stage of the season, with the option that we had for Nagelsmann, the option we had for Luis Enrique, and now it's looking likely that the former Spurs manager is going to be Chelsea manager very soon?
Well, initially when Potter got sacked, I did want Nagelsmann to be the successor, but seeming as he's dropped out of talks and I don't know what's exactly happened, I think Pochettino is the next best option that we have. I mean, if you look at what was the other option, Kompany, and I'm not sure of the third option.
Luis, I think it's that third option.
There's another one as well that the mystery. There's a mystery guest, isn't there? No one really knows who it is.
Sam Allardyce.
Yeah.
He's known for keeping clubs up.
I know Jesse Marsh was heavily linked. I was saying the other day.
My God!
I think they'd be too embarrassed. That's probably why he's the mystery guest, because they're just too embarrassed to actually admit that they're interviewing him. It'd just be considering.
I couldn't even. Can you imagine if we were sat here like next week and then Jesse Marsh has been announced in the interim? You and I, this podcast alone would last close to 2 hours talking about why Jesse Marsh is completely the wrong person for Chelsea at this point in time. Well, it is what it is, isn't it, chaps? Looking like the former Spurs manager is going to be coming to join us. I think I want to take my kind of Spurs hating hat off and kind of think logically about the situation with Pochettino. He was former Southampton manager, former Spurs manager. He went to PSG. He's had exposure managing the big egos, and it's very, very apparent that there's a lot of big egos in this Chelsea squad. I mean, I think we need to ask the question, like, Charlie, do you think he is the right man? Do you think he's the right man to steer the course, to get us back in contention for some sort of top 7? It feels weird saying top 7. We've got to try and push for it, but not this season, but next season.
I mean, ask me in 6 months, basically, is the answer to that one. But it's difficult because you say about managing egos. I don't think Tottenham was a team that he developed, actually, they've become a bit egocentric. But actually, when he started working with these players, I can't remember, he was there for 5 years or so. Harry Kane was a junior player at the time.
Yeah.
He kind of brought him through almost. So he's quite good at developing players. But the problem that he had at PSG was the egos. That was basically the reason why he got sacked. PSG was a funny one because Messi probably had more power than him at the club, and so it's an unusual situation to be in, to be honest. And didn't he get sacked after winning the league and the cup? It wasn't that he. Yes. I think the first season wasn't great, and then after that he won the double and got sacked for it. So. I think it's a bit unfair to say that his PSG campaign was bad. It's just a really funny club. No one quite. Tuchel wasn't that successful at PSG either, to be honest.
I think the measuring stick for PSG being successful at PSG is who can break the duck and win the Champions League with them. I think it doesn't matter how many league wins they win; it's all down to if they can win the Champions League or not. Tim, do you think that this appointment, there's definitely been rumblings online in terms of the appointment of Pochettino, kind of smells a little bit Rafael Benitez-y. Do you get that vibe?
No, I think it's a completely different situation. I mean, Pochettino hasn't exactly come out and said anything bad about Chelsea, whereas Rafa Benitez, I think he was talking about Drogba diving before one of our Champions League ties, and he called all the Chelsea fans plastic or something along those lines. I think people talk about Pochettino backing his club when we drew 2-2 with Tottenham Hotspur. But isn't any manager going to back their club if people are getting into fights? So I think that's a completely different scenario. You've seen managers like Mourinho cross over to Man United and Tottenham, and it would be very hypocritical for any Chelsea fan to say right now they wouldn't take Harry Kane from Tottenham Hotspur. So why would it be any different for a manager in that sense?
Do you think with the closeness that there is for Mauricio Pochettino is to Harry Kane and development on there, and Kane, likely to want to take a move at the end of the summer, it's looking like more and more likely he's not going to sign a contract. Do you think there's an outside chance that Pochettino would work his magic and say, come play for us at Chelsea?
I think so, but the big bearer is the financial restrictions. Like I said to you guys earlier, this season, I said I think he will join Man United, and I still stand by that.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things. I mean, Pochettino, like we've touched upon just now, he's got a history of developing players. And you look at all the faults that Todd Bowley has, he has, I don't want to say bought smartly because that implies everything he's done is fantastic and it quite clearly isn't. But a lot of the players that he has purchased are players in their early 20s, like late 19, 20, 21, 22. That's kind of like the perfect age that you think like Pochettino will be able to kind of mold these players and bring the best out of them. It's looking increasingly likely that the older guard, the egos as it were, that the Ziyech's, the Pulisic's, people that think they've got to play each and every game. It's looking like they're going to be out the door in the summer. Hopefully, if they're out the door in the summer, could that be an opportunity, do you think, for Poch to work his magic, Charlie? And do we think Pochettino should be announced sooner rather than later?
Yeah, he should be announced as soon as they've got his name to paper. I think they'll just calm, the situation down until the end of the season. That's the first point. Second point is, it's not. I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, there's a lot of the old guard going, which could be a good thing. But I've said it before, we are going to be left with kids who haven't won anything and who have no experience of winning anything, playing for a manager who also, certainly in England, hasn't won anything. And one of the reasons at Tottenham he didn't win anything was actually because of the kids. They bottled it against us because they basically lost the plot. When they got a good team wouldn't have lost a 2-goal lead in that match, but B would not have gone like, got 9 yellow cards or whatever it is throughout the match in the Battle of Stamford Bridge, so it's called. They also, in the Champions League final, didn't really turn up against Liverpool. They lost another final to us, I think, I seem to remember 2-0 Carling Cup thing. They missed out on the Champions League at least once. They were known as bottlers. That's why they're known as bottlers. And so you have to have a bit of experience in a team. I think if you think about who we're going to be selling, and you think about who's left, there's not that many senior players left, to be honest. I mean, even I wouldn't consider. I'd say, would you consider Reece James a senior player? I mean, based upon his age, maybe not. But in terms of how long he's been there, probably. But if we're going to get rid of Mount, we're going to get rid of. It's basically going to be him and Silva, and maybe Chilwell, and the rest of the players are basically going to be under 25. Pretty well, because even if you look at the forward line and the midfield, most of those players will go, and people like Kante won't be playing every week. So it is going to be a very young team that we're going to be fielding each week, and Pochettino likes that, obviously, but is it going to get us over the line? I don't know. I can't see it. Let's put it this way: I can't see us winning a league anytime soon with Pochettino around.
I mean, with no Europe next season, it means we can focus entirely on winning the league, which is something that's going to be very, very difficult to do. Like the standard in Premier League football in the last 10 years has been astronomical. Like if you look at the points needed to win the league now, you're looking at 95 plus to kind of guarantee you're going to win the league, around about that kind of figure. Declan's comment here, I actually think Poch might be a good appointment. He'll definitely stabilise the club. Tem, do you think he's going to bring that stability that's needed in the volatile Chelsea dressing room at the moment?
Well, if you look at how he's developed and brought that Spurs team up, I mean, he bought Dele Alli from MK Dons, was it? And, he became instantly a brilliant player, got into the England setup and was known as one of the best midfielders in the world, young midfielders in the world at the time.
Yeah.
He got the best out of Harry Kane as well. He did well, I think, particularly in midfield to build that partnership between Wanyama and Dembele. I think something we've sorely been missing for a while. So hopefully he addresses that part of the pitch. Vertonghen and Alderweireld were very good defensively. Lloris looked very good. I think they might have had Kyle Walker and they just got rid of him at the time.
Kyle Walker,
Danny Rose.
Danny Rose, yeah.
And Danny Rose.
Sonny, Ericsson.
And then Lucas Moura.
Yeah, Ericsson, Lucas Moura, and Son at the time. So, he did build a very good 11. Can he get us over the line to win a title? I'm not quite sure of yet, but in terms of building as a club, I think we need someone who will lay the foundations on and build upon, which I thought Graham Potter would be that person, but unfortunately he wasn't. I don't know if you guys agree.
I mean, I kind of see it like I think Luis Enrique is another unproven variable, and the same for Nagelsmann actually. It's not. I don't want to be like, hey, they don't know how to do it in the Premier League, because that's not. That's not a factor in bringing a player in or bringing a manager in. It's not the same issue. But Pochettino's got experience in that area in the Premier League, developing young players. He took a very mediocre Spurs side and he took them to third in a 2-horse race. So he got really, really close. And got them to a Champions League final. I mean, I don't think any of us would have ever predicted Spurs to get to a Champions League final. I think the key thing for this announcement now is, in my opinion, the announcement needs to be made sooner rather than later. And the reason being is we got Brentford on Wednesday. Is that correct?
Yeah.
We got Brentford on Wednesday. If we announce him tomorrow, we basically put in all the players on notice that your new manager is going to be in the stands on Wednesday night watching you against Brentford in a game that doesn't really mean much anymore for Chelsea. You got players mentally on the beach. You got players mentally already signing contracts with other clubs. So is he going to cascade the message down through to Lampard and just say, look, these are the players that want to keep in, and have that discussion with the director of football? I mean, do you feel it should be something to be announced sooner and have Poch in and around the team before he officially starts, or do you think he should just take over outright?
I don't think there's any need for him to take over outright. I just think it puts unnecessary pressure on him and light on him, to be honest. Around the club, certainly, that he's not doing anything else. You can start his contract now. You can even get him in the training ground now. Perhaps they could do something along the lines of. You probably don't remember this. It might be a little bit before your time, but Liverpool in the mid-90s did something.
Are you going to talk? I think you and I are the same age.
Okay, all right. Okay, you might just not remember this, but
Roy Evans
and Gerard Houllier. It was a similar thing where Roy Evans was retiring, or his time had run out, and Houllier was this guy come over from France. And he didn't really know the English game too well. It was a bit of a different situation, but he had probably about half a season where he just sat next to Roy Evans and just learnt the job off him a little bit. It might be something where Pochettino's there around next to Lampard for the next season, but Lampard's got the overriding decision, or he's just in the stand, but he's at training every day at least, or something. Just a little bit more than just in a, they just pan to him and he's in a box next to Bowley. It'll be maybe a little bit more, if that makes sense.
Do you think
more hands-on?
Tim, do you not think that puts Lampard in an awkward position?
Yeah. I was just about to say once Charlie finished. I think it's not really good for him as a manager, or really the players, sort of their future manager watching upon them. It may it may, I don't know. I would feel like it would derail and sort of demotivate Lampard as a manager, or sort of demean him, because you've got someone who's going to take over your job, watching every exact move you do. And obviously Lampard wants to make something of his managerial career, and he's there being sort of like I don't know, watched under every second. I don't know how to quite explain it, but it just doesn't sound like a good thing to do. I think one needs to go and one stays, not both there be at the same time.
Do you think in some roundabout way that it might be beneficial to have Lampard stay in the club in a different capacity, maybe in a coaching role or in a kind of similar to a Petr Cech type role where he was looking as a technical advisor?
Well, that's if that was something he wants to do. I think he would better be suited for that role. We've heard about a lot of players that Lampard really liked, where he's seemed to have found good players that we've missed out on. So he maybe as a technical advisor, he would actually be very good in terms of, talking to the manager of what he needs and advising the board on players to target and look for. But obviously that's if he still feels like he doesn't want to do management anymore, which looks like he still does want to carry on as a manager.
Yeah.
But personally, I think that would be the best role for him.
Well, yeah, Pochettino. It's exciting to see actually the developments going through. And then one comment here from Jordan. Jordan ended the season with Lampard. Poch join after is the only way. And I think kind of from that perspective is it maybe like it could work if they don't officially announce anything that Pochettino hasn't been he's signed on, but it could work in terms of letting the players know or making it heavily insinuated that it's going to be Pochettino to take over, and they're going to essentially be playing for that manager in the new season if they want to continue at the club. Do you think with the change of players, the change of manager of Pochettino come in, he might be a fresh set of eyes that might evaluate the squad itself and look at some of the players that we might potentially have to shift at FFP and say, do you know what, this is the player that I want. He might look at Mount and say, I don't want him to leave. I want you to try and retain him as best as you can. Do you think that might be on his agenda, Charlie?
Well, I think he's certainly in a strong negotiating position, negotiating his terms. And, clearly, as much as the club are doing all these interviews, I'm sure that's a reciprocal conversation that they'll be having because of the mess that so far has been this Bowley regime. And I think if you're a manager coming in, bearing in mind they know that we're in the mud essentially, we're in a pretty dire situation. We've got, like you say, FFP, all these problems coming up. You're in a very strong position to make some demands that aren't financial, that are a bit more kind of like, I want a slight, a little bit more say in the transfer market. I want, I certainly don't want you coming into my dressing room at half time trying to give team talks. There'll be certain parameters that I'm sure Pochettino will have, because he must have heard in the newspapers all this stuff, and he must be looking at this going, God, what am I walking into here? And he needs his own assurances. So I think there's a better chance, but whether we don't know what these people think of Mount. Just because we like Mount, it doesn't mean that every manager in Europe likes Mount by any stretch of the imagination. He's never worked with him before, so there's no sort of guarantee that he likes him. It changes that. But there may be other players that certainly stay longer. He never worked with Thiago Silva, did he? I don't think. PSG.
No, he didn't. No, because he came to us when Tuchel was still at PSG.
That was it. Yeah. So he doesn't really know any of our players, as far as I know, as far as I can make out. So he won't have any prerequisites. But what do you think, Tom?
I don't know. It depends, really. I think you've kind of said everything that needs to be said on the matter. We don't really know what he's thinking at this stage. He's probably got his eye on certain players that he wants to retain, but it's whether if the player wants to stay. And I think at this stage, I don't think Mason Mount, is any interest in signing a contract with Chelsea at the moment, unless he's going to be paid what he believes it to be worth. It's a discussion we all three of us have had a few times over the last few weeks. We'd all like him to stay, but whether he does is another story. It's down to Mason Mount, and if an agreement can be signed between him and Todd Bowley. I want to move a little bit away from a manager perspective. I don't know if you guys have seen this earlier on today. It was reported on the Chelsea website. and it was like I was looking at Facebook, and I was outside. I was on my lunch break, and on my lunch break, I have a little bit later on Mondays because I have a drumming lesson. So I go to my drumming lesson, I'm waiting for the door to open, and I'm just scrolling through Facebook, and out pops, it just says Mateo Kovacic. I don't know if you saw the story about Kovacic earlier on this afternoon. Now, all three of us have thought Kovacic looks like he's on the beach. He doesn't want to be there anymore. He's already looking at his other contracts. But contrary to that, he's come out and said there's nothing not to love about being at Chelsea. He's hinted significantly that he's going to stay at the club and feels really, really, really at home. Do you feel that is, the right move at this point? Do you think he's all of a sudden going to see him switch on and then turn up in some of these games where he's kind of looked a bit lost because he's now got a purpose? Do you think it's the right thing to try and retain Kovacic, or do you think, Tim, it might be time to think, okay, well, if your head's turned elsewhere, it's not to say it's going to be turned elsewhere again in 6 months' time if it doesn't work out under Pochettino?
Well, from reports we heard earlier this season that he rejected a few negotiations for contracts, and the fact that you can't always trust what a player says. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember Fabian Delph when he came out saying that he wasn't going to leave Aston Villa. He loves Aston Villa.
Yeah.
As soon as the transfer window opened, he signed for Man City. So you can't always take player statements to be the actual truth. It's more what they do during that transfer window. Yeah. So in that sense, the way he's playing football at the moment, it just doesn't look like he's interested. Maybe that's down to injury, fatigue, or just how we're playing as a team in general. But I can only go off the way he performs on a pitch compared to what he has been for the last few seasons for us. And I would arguably say this has probably been his worst season. So financially, I don't think we would get a lot of money for him.
Yeah. Just because of his age.
Yeah. Again, we haven't really won anything domestically whilst he's been here, actually. So in that sense, he may feel an entitlement of wanting to win the Premier League or Carabao Cup and FA Cup. However, I did see links of him. Apparently, his agent was talking to Man City over a potential move in the summer. So, I mean, if he wanted to get those honours, there's probably no better club than Man City at the moment to, build upon them, because I don't think Chelsea are going to be title contenders for at least another 2 years. Yeah. So, it all depends on him, really. Ball is really in his court.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie, do you feel that if Kovacic was to leave and get that move to Manchester City, I'm assuming to replace Ilkay Gundogan on his way to Barcelona, it looks like, do you think that it kind of tarnishes his kind of legacy with Chelsea?
Not particularly, because he'd be leaving for the right reasons, and he's done. But I don't think personally Man City are sort of that big of rivals for us, to be honest. They're becoming a little bit bigger just because of the Champions League final, but that's probably about it. They're not. It's not like leaving to go to Tottenham or something like that. I mean, even Mason Mount, if he goes to Liverpool, that would be probably more of a betrayal in some respects. Even though Mason Mount's one of our own, but I think with Kovacic, I don't think there's much to read into that. It's just, I was just having a quick look at it now. It's just that's just some. They probably do go. They're probably a journalist at Chelsea. He just goes around. He just he does the rounds to a few senior players and just makes a nice little story out of it. I don't think Kovacic has approached ChelseaFC.com and said, "I want to pledge allegiance to the club." And can you write how much I love London and how much I'll enjoy, drinking coffee outside Big Ben. I don't think. You know what I'm trying to say, though.
Yeah, if he says I love London and he turns up at Arsenal, we're all going to be pretty fuming. Let's face it. I thought it was pertinent to kind of touch upon Kovacic as well, because I think if he's firing on all cylinders, I would absolutely love to see next season a very, very settled midfield of Kovacic, Kante and Enzo just playing week in, week out. Ideally we'd like that to happen, but we know with Kovacic's injury problems, Kante's injury problems, it's very unlikely that we're going to get that situation as many times as we all three of us would like. Let's kind of look forwards now to Brentford. How are we feeling going into that game on Wednesday? Are you feeling positive just because it's a chance. It's Brentford. It's at home. It's an opportunity to kind of pick up points. They're not firing all cylinders. Brentford, they kind of had a drop in form. Is this the perfect opportunity for Chelsea to play, or do we still feel we're going to get pummeled 3-0?
Sorry, I don't mind taking it for. Every time I said every time we play, I get in this saying. I'll be doing it tomorrow, and on Wednesday I'll be going. Oh, I think we're going to win. I think we're going to win today. Look at our team. But unfortunately, we've got to be real. Since Lampard's come in, he's lost every single match, and there's been games in there that have been winnable. The Potters before that lost a few matches in a row as well. Probably to clubs that were not as good. So, and Brentford are good. This is the thing. You say it's only Brentford, but they're all right. They're better than us in the league.
West London derby too.
London derby. They beat us 4-1. Was it last season or the year before? So they can they've got it in them to turn up for these matches. They're on good form. They've got a good manager. I think it will be. I think if we get a draw out of that, I'd be pretty satisfied just the way it's going. Obviously we'd like to win, but you've got to be realistic about this. We can't score goals, and to win you've got to score a goal at least. So that's my theory.
I just think it's going to be a very low scoring drab affair. The problem is we can retain all this possession, but the issue that we have is Brentford are exceptionally good at playing counter-attacking football with the long ball over the top, or a long ball onto Mbuemo, to Ivan Toney. Ivan Toney is a player that I think I've discussed on the podcast that I rate very, very highly. And if he wasn't going to be banned for the next 8 months, or however long he's going to get banned for, I would have liked Chelsea to sign Ivan Toney. I think it would be a perfect person for us to go after. Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it, boys? It really, really is. We've got to win at some point. And looking at the fixture list that we've got to the end of the season, it is not looking fantastic. So we've got to try and get some. I just want us to secure not being relegated, so then I can feel at ease. I don't think we will be relegated, but it would just be nice to get that secured and have that little cushion. Do you know what I mean? Do you feel that it's?
I just wanted to add to that. They haven't won in their last six games. They've drew 3 and lost 3.
Same.
So, is that exact same form as us?
We've lost all of the last 6. I think I can't remember the last time we drew
against Liverpool.
We drew against Everton. That was probably the last one that we. I know the Liverpool at home. That was it with and then we lost the 4. It's been 4 with Lampard now, isn't it?
We've lost Villa, Real Madrid twice.
Villa was with Potter, wasn't it?
We've not won in 6 weeks.
Oh yeah, Villa was with Potter. Yeah, we haven't won in 44 days.
Wolves away we lost. Obviously, that was Lampard's first game. Real Madrid we lost away.
Real Madrid again.
And then there was the Brighton. Yeah, that was it.
We got lucky in that Brighton game to only lose 2-1. And then it's been a while. We've not won since the 11th of March against Leicester City. I'm just trying to think. The last time we won a game at home was Dortmund. The last league game was Leeds 1-0 on the 4th of March.
Yeah, it is that Fofana game, wasn't it? The one where he scored the corner.
Yeah,
I mean, this is what I mean. And all the goals that we're scoring, you've got to remember, we got that goal against Brighton. Wasn't that the first goal we'd scored for ages? Obviously, we didn't score on Tuesday again, and that wasn't the goal. I mean, it was a goal, but it wasn't a well worked goal. You couldn't say that was a training ground routine or something. He just kicked the ball into the other guy's shin and it lobbed over the keeper's head. I mean, it was totally against the run of play. So I just don't think we've got too many goals in us. And from what I've seen of Brentford this season, and I know that I know you're saying their form's not great either, but I think they're better than us. Let's put it that way. And they turn up these big matches,
Yeah, I'm hoping that we turn up. Do you know what I mean? I'm really, really, really hoping that we are turning up to this game because, we look at the fixtures, we look at the run in here. Like realistically, Arsenal away, we're getting our pants pulled down there. Bournemouth away, we might pick up some points here. You'd hope so, but Bournemouth's form is so hit and miss. Ours is mostly miss, but theirs is hit and miss for a team down in that region. You're hoping you beat Forest at home. you're hoping. But after that, you got Man City away, Man United away, Chelsea at home.
Chelsea at home.
Chelsea at home, fixture. Yeah, it's a good fixture. It's going to be really low set. We've got Newcastle at home.
Put 0-0. The bookmakers won't be taking odds on that one.
I know, right? and then we're hoping. I'm hoping that by the time it gets to Chelsea versus Wrexham in Florida, we might pick up. So we might actually win a game by that point. I think one thing you just messaged me on there. It looking like at the moment. I just want to refer back through to Mason Mount. We're reading on there. Tim, you were reading on the Athletic earlier on today. It looks like Mason Mount is currently in discussions with Bowley in terms of a contract extension. So his deal currently runs out in 2024. So a contract extension to 2025 is good because it gives us more negotiating power, gives us the opportunity to get rid of some players off the books, get some wage cap. Well, I don't want to say wage cap because it's so American if you do say it, but get flexibility in terms of wages and kind of relieve some of the FFP, that pressure on there. And also increases his, in a weird way, kind of increases his value as well. So even if we then do decide to sell him, we could probably get more money because there's longer left in the contract. Do you think, is that music to your ears?
I don't know. I don't think it really solves anything. I think it's sort of like just painting over the cracks in a sense of like, we don't want to sell you because you're going into your last 12 months. Let's try get something sorted for now and we will reevaluate it next year, which to be honest isn't the worst idea because he hasn't been performing that well in my eyes to deserve a 250 grand a week contract despite what other players are getting at the moment. I don't think they deserve it either, but however, we do need to be financially coy going into the future. So maybe getting him to extend for another 12 months and then reevaluating the situation makes the most valuable sense because he is such an integral player to how we play. And you saw it actually when he came on, even against Real Madrid. I think he was one of the only players who played a good through ball. If you remember the through ball to Mudryk he played.
Yeah,
I don't think many players in our team actually play that pass enough. Maybe Kovacic tries it, but he overhits it. Felix usually, although he's a brilliant player on the ball, he often does piss me off because he doesn't, get his head up and look for those passes. He often dribbles a little bit too much, and maybe that chance just disappears away. So he definitely still is. I think we've seen it in a sense of like when Mason Mount performs, Chelsea performs. So. We have definitely missed him this year. I think Lampard not being able to use him doesn't seem correct to me. I don't know. It smells like something's going on in the background.
It feels very weird, doesn't it, Charlie? Like the fact that Mount, I mean, when Lampard was there at the time, that I think we saw on all the Chelsea Facebook posts, Lampard's son, and then became Potter's son, and Lampard's son, and it is very weird. He, it's a player that Lampard developed. Like when you think about it, he really is because he took him on loan at Derby, kind of developed him there at Derby, and then he brought him into the first team with that transfer ban. It's like no, he just started playing him game in, game out. He's like no, this is my player, this is who I'm sticking with, and it just feels very bizarre that he's not selecting him week in, week out, and it definitely smells a little bit. Clubs maybe told Lampard that you can't play him and give him those minutes until a resolution has come to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons why. Look, I know Lampard he's not the greatest manager of all time, but even he's underperforming, and I think I think some of his selections just look very forced to me. There's a lot of players, I've said it before, that seem to just get in the team every week, no matter how they play. There's certain players that it seems to be all based upon keeping their value a lot of the time. It's a business. We've said it before, it is a business, right? First and foremost, or however you want to look at it. But ultimately, the manager's got to be able to pick the team. It just seems that players I don't know, I like Conor Gallagher. He's a nice bloke, but I don't quite understand how he can consistently get in the team. Just one since Lampard. I think he's played every match under Lampard, hasn't he, so far?
Yeah.
Even against Real Madrid, he was playing. And then certain other players, players that seem to get in. Cucurella seems to get in way too much for the form that he shows.
I think Cucurella has been brought in, though, to be fair, as there is nobody else.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I don't believe that to be true, because I think we've all said that we'd rather, instead of Cucurella playing some of these positions when Chilwell's out injured, is just play Lewis Hall. Because why not? He doesn't look out of place when he does play. But I think the thing with Cucurella is I'm fairly certain that I say fairly certain, it's purely speculation, but I'm fairly positive he's going to go back out. He's going to go out on loan. He's going to be another example of the Chelsea buy high, loan until the end of their contract, and then they leave on a free. I think he's probably going to be one of those.
Have you heard that? Is that because I haven't? I've heard that.
I've heard
I've heard Koulibaly's going. That's the one, isn't it? Today they're saying Juventus are in for him, but I haven't, and it's weird because I've actually thought Koulibaly's been vaguely improving over the last few months, right? But Cucurella, he's consistently been bad all season. I would prefer to see him go out, but I thought with his price tag, and undoubtedly he's on a lot of money as well, I just thought he'd be very hard to loan out and very hard to justify, because often with these loan players, I mean, apart from Lukaku, that's probably the only example I can think of, they're usually kind of these average transfer fee players, the sort of ones maybe like, 20 million quid, Zappacosta, they're sort of like, Emerson, these sort of guys, and they're not like really, they're just kind of blokes that we bought, and then we were sort of like, oh yeah, he's not quite good enough, but it doesn't matter, we'll buy someone else. That's kind of the players. Whereas Cucurella, we've put a lot of eggs in his basket, if you like, and to just go and throw him out on loan, it would just seem like a bit of a. But I mean, I'd be all for it. But I'm saying that from a business point of view, if you want to look at Bowley's point, he'd probably say, look, give him another year.
Yeah, but from a business point of view, we've done that previously in the past. Like we've brought in players like Bakayoko and sent him straight out on loan. Like the next season when he doesn't perform.
But he was probably what I would say he was actually worse than Cucurella. He was bad. I mean, he wasn't. And look at what he's done since as well. That's how bad he was. That was the peak of his career at Chelsea. It was. He's since Chelsea, his career has just plummeted. He's become a joke.
How dare you? He is a Chelsea contracted player still, 5 years later.
But where is he now? Isn't it? I don't know where he is. But he never. He surely never.
He doesn't even start.
No, he hasn't played football for it. In fact, isn't he? He must hold a record. Hasn't he never got a cap for France ever? Is it French? Is he French? I think he's French.
He is French.
I think he might have got
one cap, maybe.
What's the record?
Well, the record for getting 0 caps and the most money. A good question. That used to be a pub quiz question. I remember for England it used to be Curtis Davis for a long time, but I'm not sure who it is for because I still think he to this day, and he cost Villa 15 million, I think, didn't he? Yeah, Danny Drinkwater, isn't it, for England? Yeah, I'm guessing it's got to be.
Yeah, he's played once from what I can see. I had a little look. He's played one time back in 2017, and I think it was just before he joined. But even then, he was signed for 40 million as well.
Well, he was meant to be good though. He was meant to be the next best thing. That guy.
Yeah, and you know what the funny thing about that team was? If you remember who was in that team, Bernardo Silva, Falcao, Mbappe, Fabinho.
The Monaco team,
yeah, Mendy at Man City, left back. Yeah. And I think it was Thomas Lamar as well, and somehow we ended up with the worst one, Bakayoko.
And everyone else was carrying him. He was just getting carried basically. He was they were that good that they could just afford to carry one central midfielder.
Made him look cracking. That's how I feel when I play in centre back position with you, Timber. Because you do all the running, you do all the sweeping, and I just have to challenge. And then once they inevitably dribble the ball around me, it's like Timber's like, okay, there we go. Well, chaps, let's look forwards. I know we've had a brief discussion on Brentford going forwards. Let's have a look at what we feel. Should we do a preferred lineup and a predicted lineup for what we think is going to happen on Wednesday at Stamford Bridge? Let's start with All right, let's start with predicted. So let's start with predicted. We have Temba's favourite player in goal. So I'm assuming it's going to be Kepa in goal.
Edouard Mendy. Yep.
So you really think Mendy's going to come in at this point?
No. It's going to be Kepa.
So you think Kepa in goal, and then do you think he's going to go back to a back four or stick with the back three? He's not played with the same formation at all for the last 4
Exactly.
games.
Knowing Lampard, I think he's going to choose the wrong option, so I think he'll go to the back four.
So you think he's going to go with the back four? So that means we're expecting James in a stifled right back position, and then I'm going to guess Cucurella on. Oh no, Chilwell, he's available, isn't he?
Yeah, he would be, yeah.
And then it's
Silva and Fofana, I'm guessing.
Is he going to play? I don't think he's going to play Silva yet. I think Silva's only brought in for the Real Madrid games. I don't think he's fully fit, to be honest.
I think he plays 60. I think he starts.
Silva?
I think Lampard always goes with experience, and he'll always go with his favourite option. So
Fofana and Silva, and then are we thinking 3-3? Are we thinking 5-1? Are we thinking 3-3? And what's the 3-3?
Enzo. Oh, we'll talk about. Is it all right to mention Maatsen now, or just after we've done our lineups?
I mean, yeah. Let's talk about Ian Maatsen. He's playing at Burnley at the moment. He's doing absolutely fantastically. He's got Burnley promoted to the Premier League. He went on loan to Coventry last year. He's a young Dutch player for Chelsea. He's another left back option that we have with Lewis Hall. Is he more? Do you think he's probably more ready to be an understudy to Ben Chilwell when Chilwell inevitably gets injured at some point next season?
Potentially. He has also been playing left centre back, which is quite interesting. Although a lot of people think he's a very attacking player. So, he could be an option. I think he should be about 5'10", 5'11", maybe. So he's about Cucurella's height as well. So I don't know. He's only 21 years old, so maybe he might need a few. I think the best thing for him would be to either go back on loan or permanently sign for Burnley for a year or two and see how he develops, because it's quite a lot to ask for him to be a mainstay at Chelsea at this age. Yeah. I think where we want to go and where he wants to go, he just wants to get minutes, and obviously for us being out of any sort of European competition, if we get knocked out the cups early, he's
going to get less and less minutes. You know what? I didn't even consider that as a really, really valid point. I think, especially if he seems kind of settled in that Burnley team, so why doesn't he just go back on loan to Burnley for the rest of for next season in the Premier League, and then he gets that Premier League exposure, and then we see how he performs, and he can hopefully keep some clean sheets against some of our rivals as we challenge for 7th place. So let's go back to the midfield. So what are we thinking of the midfield three? So Enzo's pretty much a given. He's played every minute of football available to him from a starting position. Are we thinking? You think Kante is going to stay in the squad, or do we think he's going to be rested?
He can't. I think he starts.
Yeah, I think he starts. There's nothing to rest him for. Because the next game as well, we're not playing next week, this weekend again. We've got, I think the next one's Tuesday, isn't it, Arsenal? So we've actually got nearly a week again, so I think Kante starts 100%.
And this is the difficult one. Do you think he's going to go with Kovacic, or do you think he's going to go with Gallagher?
Wow.
Or a player I've not thought of. Or Carney Chukwuemeka. He's still available.
I think he gets minutes off the bench, but I still think Kovacic starts.
Okay. Would you agree Kovacic starts?
Charlie Harris? based upon the evidence, Gallagher will start. He starts every game. I mean, this is what I mean. It's very difficult to predict it and what it should, because realistically, Gallagher probably does start. I think.
It'd be interesting to see how many of these if we actually get this right. And then a front three, or I'm assuming a 2 and a 1. Aubameyang to get a start, anyone?
No,
I don't think so.
No. So we're just going to go with old Kai Havertz, we think, at the top. And then I'm assuming
his Felix
on the left. And then what are we saying on the right? Do you think he's going to give more minutes to Mudryk?
No. I think he starts Sterling again.
Why do you think? Do you think he's persisting with Sterling when Sterling's so clearly been off the boil for the last few games?
I think, all things considered, he's an ego in the dressing room. I don't know if he might have something in his contract where he needs to make a certain amount of appearances, things like that. And he's not been playing well. So the best way to managers think to play someone into form is to keep playing them, for one. And he needs to start understanding his teammates a bit more. Raheem Sterling. He did have actually a good partnership with Aubameyang, which I don't think many people actually noticed. If you remember early on in the season when Potter just took over and when Tuchel was just sacked, they linked up quite well a couple of times. But then obviously Aubameyang's form dwindled out and he dropped out of the team. But yeah, I think Sterling will get more minutes just because he's a senior player. He's been there and done it before. Whereas Mudryk, they'll probably be a bit more patient with him. And maybe next season we'll see more of him being introduced.
Okay. Well, that's the lineup that we predicted. So Kepa in goal, James, Fofana, Silva, Chilwell, Enzo, Kova, Kante, Sterling, Havertz and Felix. Let's go for what the lineups we actually want to happen. So what we'll do is we'll start with our resident Mr. Positive. We'll go right across to Charlie Harris. Charlie, if you are Chelsea manager for the day, which, it's very, very likely. It's like the lottery, we're all going to get a turn at some point. We're all going to win something on a scratch card eventually. So it might be your turn to be Chelsea manager at some point. What are you going to go with for tomorrow? Bear in mind, who have we got that's fairly certain that's not going to be involved? Is Koulibaly the only one?
Yeah, just Koulibaly. I'd go, I'd put back three, put Chalobah in there. Chilwell and James, keep them. Fofana and Silva, keep them. Kepa
Hang on 2 seconds. I'm writing this down. Jeez.
Oh, sorry. Fofana, so Kepa, Fofana, or this isn't in any particular. Fofana, Silva, Chalobah.
Yeah.
Chilwell on the left, James on the right.
Yep.
Kante, Enzo.
Yep.
And Kante, Enzo. I'd like to see Mount in that three, but whether he gets that, if not, it's what I want to see. So Mount.
This is what you want to see, isn't it? So
yeah, okay. So Mount in the three, and then up front, I would like to see just for my own. I'd like to see the other Fofana, and I'd like to see Felix and.
Well, you can't because that would be 12.
No, it wouldn't.
It would.
Why?
Yeah, you got Kepa, Chalobah, Silva, Fofana, Chilwell, James, Kante.
Yeah, of course. So there's only going to be. I'm only going to have two up front, aren't I? Disaster. I don't need two up front. I don't need two. I'll tell you what. I'll put Enzo and Kante in the midfield then, and I'll put Mount up top with Felix and that Fofana. Dude.
All right. So the same as you just told me. Other than who was going to be your 12th player?
The 12th man was going to be Mount in the midfield, but he's unfortunately
Mount twice.
Who was it going to be? No, I think it probably Sterling actually. Yeah, okay. But I haven't got space for him, unfortunately. I can see why these managers struggle. It's hard enough trying to get 12 to fit into 11, let alone 30 to fit into
too many players.
15 or whatever it is.
So Tim, I'm assuming you're going to go Slanina and goal, yeah?
I would actually like to see how he fares off in the Premier League. I think he's had first team experience in America, obviously. A very big player for Chicago Fire, was it? And I've heard good things about him. He's not particularly small. So again, another positive. I just want to see.
I'd like to see him play a game, even if Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest or something like that. I'd like to see him have some sort of start in a game that's not got really any meaning.
Yeah, but obviously the club and the manager won't see it that way. They'll take this game somewhat seriously. Yeah. We could catch Burnley if we win. Brentford, sorry, if we win, and
that'll be next season. Trying to catch high-flying Burnley.
Yeah, because we're only 5 points off Brentford, and we've got a game in hand. So a win takes us only 2 points of them. So he'll probably play his best 11. However, I would like to see. Yep. As much as I don't like him, I would like to see Kepa in goal.
Yep. Kepa in
Reece
goal.
James at right wing back.
Is he playing with a back five or
Yeah.
back three? Yeah.
I would go for Thiago Silva, Fofana, and Badiashile.
Oh, I forgot about it.
Yeah,
And
well, it's
then-
easy to forget a Chelsea player this season. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would go with Chilwell as left wing back.
Yeah, I already wrote his name down. Just assume that would be the case.
I would go for Kante and Enzo.
So 2 in the middle or 3 in the middle?
2 in the middle. Oh, actually,
Two.
no. I'll play a 3. A 3 in the middle.
Okay.
And I would go for Mudryk and Havertz up front.
Okay, you're missing one player.
How am I?
Who's your third in the middle?
I've gone 3 in midfield. Enzo, Kante, and Mount.
Oh, you put Mount.
Oh, Mount, sorry. Okay. All right. Awesome. Right. So let me go for my prediction. Funnily enough, I'm going to go with 3 at the back. And I'm going to go with Kepa in goal. And then Fofana, Silva, and Badiashile. I think the back 3 is pretty... Back 5 pretty much. The back 6 picks themselves. Let's face it, it's not like I'm all of a sudden going to go, do you know what? Aspilicueta needs to start over James, let's face it. So Chilwell at left wing back, James at right wing back. I'm going to go in midfield 3 of who I want. So it'd be Kante, Enzo, and funnily enough, I'm going to say Mount as well. We've all gone for the same midfield. And then up front... It's probably going to be Havertz, just because. Do you know what? It's what we want to see. I'm going to go Aubameyang, and I'm going to say Sterling, because I want to see if those two can, like you just said, just because you put it into my mind, that's who I'll go with, Aubameyang and Sterling, and I'd like to see if they actually show up. I think that'd be interesting to see. It's definitely not going to happen. Let's face it, we're just playing fantasy manager right now, but. That's my lineup. I go Kepa in goal, Fofana, Silva, Badiashile, James right wing back, Chilwell left wing back, Kante, Mount, and Enzo in the middle, with Mount as the more advanced of the 3, Aubameyang and Sterling as the attackers. That's what I go with, and then give Sterling a kind of free, floaty number 10 role. Do what he wants. It'd probably be Mount and Sterling would probably do that.
In terms of like subs, would you guys like to see anyone come off the bench?
I'd like to see Chukwuemeka.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Madueke.
Yeah.
Because those plays have been stifled for minutes.
In fact,
hiccups.
I'll take that back. I would actually like to see Chukwuemeka start, but I don't know whoever. Maybe Mount.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting. I'd like to. If it happened, it happens. I wouldn't begrudge it. I would like to see Mount play, but even if it's to see Chukwuemeka actually, get some game time. We've invested 20 million. I know he's very early into his career, but it'd be interesting to see him and actually get those minutes. Chukwuemeka at bench. I like Madueke. Charlie, I don't know any bench players you want to see other than Christian Pulisic, Hakim Ziyech.
Well, I was going to say for comedy value, if we're losing 5-0 anyway, might as well bring on Aspilicueta and Cucurella for comedy value. But
ouch, that's harsh on Aspilicueta, isn't it?
Well, no, because I love it. He's a nice guy and everything. But the thing is,
he's a nice guy and everything. Let me find that comment.
I did that on purpose. I did it on purpose, by the way. I did it on purpose. I'm not setting up a pound jar here, but no, I mean, obviously, it would be quite funny just to watch him one more time. There's not. No, I mean, apart from the ones we've already mentioned, obviously, Fofana, striker Fofana.
Yes.
Obviously, I said he should start. I've never seen him do anything wrong, that guy. So I don't see why. I'd like to see him do something.
I would really, 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 really like to see kind of the players that haven't been given the minutes. Do you know, in an ideal world, I'd like to be 2-0 up with 70 minutes to go and think, do you know what? Let's bring some of these players on.
2-0's a funny scoreline. I'd wait until it's 5-0, mate.
Yeah.
Dizzying heights.
With 5 minutes to go.
I'd like to see Lewis Hall get some more minutes. Madueke, Chukwuemeka, Fofana. I'm just looking through the list now of players that would be available.
Chalobah. Lewis Hall. There's a
Yeah.
player like Lewis Hall, for example. Where we relied on him a lot at one point this season. He didn't do anything wrong. I wouldn't mind seeing him do something. Just come on for 10 minutes at the end for Chilwell. There's not. I mean, I don't want to see them using the same people. If we are winning 4-0, which we won't be, but if we are, I would like to see them use some of these players. I don't want to see bringing on Gallagher and Pulisic and Ziyech again. I really don't. I don't see the point. I don't know what that brings. I don't know what that says to the rest of the What does it say to Lewis Hall when you're bringing on some players that are never going to play for Chelsea again on the pitch? And I think with Aubameyang, as much as people go, I'd like to see Aubameyang. I was reading something today that he's calling all his Barcelona teammates, begging them to come back or something. I mean, do we really want him there? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, he's on his way out. So
yeah.
What Charlie said about Lewis Hall, he did play tonight in the development team. He was playing centre back, so I doubt he'll be involved on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Same as the Slilina goalkeeper and Amari Hutchinson. So unlikely to see any of them youngsters play for the on Wednesday. Actually, Lucas Moura played for Tottenham development squad today as well.
Well, he needs minutes as well. Let's face it.
Yeah,
he's not getting much game time at Spurs. Well, chaps, we're around the closing of the hour mark. I didn't think we'd have as much discussion as we did, considering there was pretty much no game. And let's face it, we don't really want to run through the last 30 minutes of that Madrid game. So I appreciate you both for joining me this evening. Everybody that has joined us, all there. From what I can see, I appreciate you joining us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you have the opportunity for us to announce when we go live. We'll see you next week, 9:30 on Monday. And we got some good things coming up. I think we might try and plan some sort of watch-alongs for Chelsea games live and in person, all three of us in the same room, watching Charlie get angry at every misplaced pass. It's going to be great. So, boys, appreciate it, and I'll see you next week.
Peace.